Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Doug.
So it's February.
It is. It can be a difficult month.
We are experiencing some weather.
There's always weather in February.
And I have been wearing my Rover rain cape because the best part about it is when the weather stinks and it's cold, you just put it over whatever you're wearing. So it's great. Like, I don't have to have a separate big snow outfit like some kid going out to go sledding or something. I just put this on over.
That's right. And especially when it's a wintry mix, when it's changing back and forth from sleet to snow to freezing rain and back again. Cleverhood has you covered. And yes, underneath you can have your puffer. You can have whatever you need to stay warm and cozy.
They're very versatile jackets. We are so appreciative of Cleverhood and all they do for the war on cars. They don't just keep us dry. They don't just keep us visible when we're out on our bikes, but they support us and they support so many great organizations. We're so grateful for their support.
It's like a nice, cozy hug to put on the Cleverhood and to know that they are out there just hugging the whole world.
That's lovely. Well, speaking of hugs and love, you can get 15% off everything in the Cleverhood store now through the end of February if you use the code DESIGNEDWITHLOVE at cleverhood.com/waroncars.
Cleverhood. It's like a big warm hug.
Again, that's cleverhood.com/waroncars, designed with love. This is The War on Cars. I am Doug Gordon. With me, as always, is my co-host, Sarah Goodyear.
Hey there.
So welcome to the CXLIVth episode of the podcast, or the CXLIVth episode of the podcast. I don't know how you do that.
One of those. Yes, this is our annual Super Bowl Roundup, where we take a look at the car ads and talk about what it all means for our culture, our climate, our politics, you name it, the American project.
Yeah, I will say celebrating violent American aggression cuts a little differently right now than it used to.
Yeah, it used to be more fun.
It used to be more fun to be really violent and celebrate people crashing into each other, for sure.
Anyway, we'll get there.
Yeah, we have two great guests joining us, but first,
we are on Patreon at patreon.com/thewaroncarspod. And we are a completely independently produced podcast. It is only your support that helps us keep going and growing. So please sign up and you'll get access to ad-free versions of regular episodes, exclusive bonus episodes, early invites to live shows, merch discounts, much, much more. Plus, we will send you stickers and a handwritten thank you note. And if you can read cursive, you'll be able to read my notes to you.
I can read cursive.
Okay,
my kids cannot. Also, we had a really awesome time at our recent live show with City Nerd at Hunter College, and we are going to be releasing that as a bonus episode soon. Our next live show will be on Thursday, April 24th at the Cedar Cultural Center in Minneapolis, and that's presented by Our Streets. We will put a link to get tickets in the show notes. I hear tickets are going fast, so get those now.
And finally, we would like to acknowledge the passing of one of the greats in our field, Professor Donald Shoup, the author of The High Cost of Free Parking, and a man who really changed the minds and perspective of a lot of people out there with his work. Really great man, Donald Shoup. We re-released our interview with him. You can find that in our feed.
Honestly, one of my favorite episodes I've ever done. I think I said in the intro to that one that when I interviewed him, I just had a smile on my face the entire time. He was so witty and just a great conversational partner, just so smart. And like you said, has had a huge impact on so many people in the way that we all think about cities. So he will be missed, but his impact will be felt for generations to come. Okay, that is it for the Cleverhood pregame show. Right now it is kickoff time. Here to discuss Super Bowl 59 are two of the smartest and funniest people I know on or off the internet. We are joined by Rollie Williams and Nicole Conlan. If you don't know them, I hope you do. They host together the podcast, The Climate Denier's Playbook, where they take on pervasive climate myths and misinformation that are standing in the way of meaningful progress in the climate crisis. You might also know Rollie as the creator and host of the amazing YouTube channel and series Climate Town. It's really one of my favorite watches. Somehow also you are a big billiards player. That's what I hear.
Yeah, we have a pool table in the office.
Oh, wow. We do not have an office, so no pool table.
Are we allowed to talk?
You can talk whenever you want.
During the whole intro, I was like, I don't know how quiet I'm supposed to be.
Well, now I guess I should say who you are. Okay. We are also joined by Nicole Conlan. Nicole writes for The Daily Show. She used to write for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, nominated for an Emmy and Peabody Award. You won the Peabody Award.
I won the Peabody. I'm a 4-time Emmy loser.
Oh, okay.
No.
But that's more
say that.
That's more Emmy losses than I have.
Okay.
So that's pretty.
I guess
good.
I gotta
good.
say, Nicole, technically you're like 1,000+ time Emmy loser because you've never won any of the Emmys.
That's true.
Aren't we all then?
Yeah, we are all.
Yeah.
We have all lost the exact same amount of Emmys.
That's true.
And Nicole, you are also a writer for Not Just Bikes.
I am.
We are big fans of Jason. We've had Jason on the show.
Yes, I'm also a big fan of Jason.
Who? Just joking. Jason, we love you.
So let's get to it. Rollie and Nicole, welcome. We're really glad to have you here on The War on Cars.
I'm excited to be here. Frankly, I'm excited to be inside out of the cold.
Yeah.
I'm just pleased as punch to be in your cool podcasting studio.
Yeah, this is a cool studio for those of you who have never seen it. Our engineer, Josh Wilcox, has created a sort of a womb-like environment, as I think of it.
It is
inside.
wetter than I thought it was going to be, for sure.
No, but it's like we're inside a parking garage, but we're upstairs from a parking garage, and there's this room, even though there's a parking garage downstairs, where we're completely safe and happy when we come in here. So thank you, Josh.
Our podcast studio is you know those trifold posters you get for a science fair?
Yeah.
We have 2 of those surrounding us with like old blankets draped over them. So
Yep.
This is a big step up.
We put a big blanket on a table that used to be owned by a butcher shop, and we podcast into some trifolds, and that's our setup.
All right. Well, we're here to talk about the Super Bowl. Did you all watch?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I did the assignment. I understood the assignment.
But you would watch anyway because your house is a football house.
Yes, my house is a football house. My wife is from the state of Mississippi, and it's required if you are from the state of Mississippi to understand and know a lot about football and actually to even enjoy it. So over the past couple of decades, I've been making that adjustment for myself of just showing my love and support for her by also understanding football better and trying to care about it. But I understand it, but I have failed to care about it.
That's my relationship with my fiance, except instead of football, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice. You guys are very supportive of your partner.
Rollie, did you watch?
I watched. I was particularly tickled that the Roman numerals are licks. I don't know. That was fun for me.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, the Broncos won back-to-back Super Bowls. And so I think it just hit me at my stage of gestation where I was like, oh, football is important. Super Bowl is important. Super Bowl. But I ultimately don't give one red shit about football.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a blowout. It was a pretty rough game for Kansas City.
We love to see it. It's, as you know, famously a lifelong Eagles fan, I've always known about them and followed them extensively. I was thrilled to see them win.
And once again, what city are the Eagles in?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
No, it's one fun thing about the game last night is I want to be 100% clear that rooting for the Eagles is not praxis.
Yeah.
But it really did seem like there was a clear villain of the piece. And so it was fun to have a villain to root against, who in this case are the racism team. And
especially because Trump picked them to win. He picked Kansas City to win.
Yeah, there's tons of reasons why.
Do you guys remember last year where it was like, oh yeah, Biden rigged it so that the Chiefs would win because Taylor Swift endorsed Biden?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And it's like, well, everyone forgot about it, and now Trump picked them to win, and it's like, oh damn it, it's the liberals again. Like, it's really amazing how the liberals pick the Super Bowl winners every year.
It's fine. Trump will pass a new executive order that now the Chiefs are the winners.
Also, I just kept seeing like for the first time ever, 2 black quarterbacks were playing, or as Republicans would call it, the DEI Super Bowl. And I just thought it was such a
There was
funny
a
bit.
meme going around that had like this. It was before the Super Bowl, and it was like, this game is not Philadelphia versus Kansas City. It's MAGA versus socialism. And then on the socialism side, they put Travis Kelce, even though he's playing for the Chiefs. And then on the Chiefs, or on the MAGA side, they put all the Chiefs, but then, I can't remember his last name, Cooper something.
Oh,
From the Eagles, because as far as I can tell, he's only on the MAGA side because he's a white cornerback.
yes, because it's very rare to have a white cornerback,
But
and
there's-
that
but
is
there's,
a
like,
DEI.
nothing-
But then other people were joking that that's a DEI move to have a white cornerback.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he also had, I think, one of the biggest plays of the game. So good for Cooper, whatever your name is.
Wow, white people can make it in this country after all. That's amazing.
But let's just say this may have been, and I am very not black, so I'm not really qualified to
What?
say this, but like it
It
seemed
sounds
also
weird
like
saying that.
maybe the blackest halftime show ever, or perhaps close to that.
I
And
was
the
gonna get
halftime
to
show
that.
is what I was
Halftime
there
show.
for. Yeah.
Whipped ass.
Yeah, it kicked butt. It was really. What'd you think?
I mean, Kendrick Lamar established himself as the greatest hater of all time.
Yeah.
He
Yes.
looked
Yeah.
into a camera and said, "Hey Drake, I hear you like him young," in the Super Bowl to 100 million people.
And then he got 70,000 people all together to say A
A
minor.
Yeah, and Serena Williams on stage dancing.
Drake's ex.
Oh
Bummer.
man, that was
Drake.
incredible.
Yeah.
To bring it to the war on cars,
Sorry,
however,
sorry.
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Drake loves cars.
Let's
just
talk
saying.
about the car that was on stage,
Mm-hmm.
out of which 100 dancers poured. It was a Buick GNX. Do you guys know the backstory of this Buick GNX?
I
It's
don't.
it's on his album cover.
Right. His
Right?
most
Yeah.
recent album is called GNX.
Yeah.
And he apparently was brought home from the hospital by his dad in a Buick Regal, which the GNX is like a souped up version
Yeah.
of the Regal. My mom had a Regal in the 80s, a blue Regal, I believe. It was a really popular, common, basic car.
And yet you didn't go on to become a famous rapper.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Exactly. I have lots of people I hate and could write diss tracks about.
Okay.
However. So, yeah. Apparently, when that album came out, GNX, it made getting a GNX very difficult because, like sneakers or a brand
Yeah.
of soft drink or something like that, like the minute someone like Kendrick endorses essentially something, demand for that goes through the roof. So the producers of his show had to find a GNX to dismantle, right? Because they had to like hollow it out so all of these people
Yeah.
could climb up from the bottom of the stage.
I mean, I was
and
going to
come
say
out of it.
high density vehicle right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's-
At that point, it's a bus.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's like the
It's
congestion
carpooling.
charge at that point is like 1 cent per person.
Yeah.
So,
Boy,
so,
when a rapper finally releases an album with a 99 Subaru Outback on the cover,
you're
a
cooked,
lot of
Nicole.
people in Colorado are going to get real rich.
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a whole story about how the production team had to source this car, but also had to tell the people that they were buying it from, hey, we're going to totally destroy it, basically. And a lot of people didn't want to do that. But they did get their hands on one and hollowed it out and put it on stage.
I think they
That's
would have had an
awesome.
easier time being like, hey, we're going to destroy it for Kendrick Lamar's halftime show. Although then if I'm the owner of that GTX, I'd be like, oh, then give me $45 million.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay.
Sorry,
here you go.
GNX.
The history of the Buick is pretty interesting too. We had the scholar and author Gretchen Soren on the show a few years ago to talk about her book Driving While Black, and she talked about the history of the Buick, just as not the GNX in particular, but the Buick brand in the African American community. And what she told us then was generally African Americans favored the Buick. And they favored the Buick because it was a good, sturdy, sensible car that had a great reputation. So it was a car that wouldn't strand you when you were going out on the road. So because she writes a lot about how, when you set out on a road trip as a Black person in the 50s, 60s, and earlier, you really had to be very sure of your vehicle, that it was going to get you there because you could not stop to get it fixed. A lot of the time, you carried your own gas with you and all of that. It was a car that wouldn't strand you when you were going out on the road, and it was also heavy, and a heavy car would be harder for a mob to turn over if you encountered an angry mob on the road. Also, a Buick was a nice big car with a large trunk, and you needed that trunk space to carry all of those big coolers and blankets and pillows, extra fan belts, maybe even some extra gasoline cans. And Buick had nice, large, comfortable seats for sleeping if you had to sleep in the car.
Wow.
So that is the backstory of the Buick that I just was thinking about during that whole show.
I think we should also note that Super Bowl 59 was obviously held in New Orleans, and on New Year's, in the middle of the night on New Year's Day, there was the vehicle ramming where a guy in a Ford F-150 Lightning truck, he drove into a crowd on Bourbon Street. He killed 14 people. 30 or 40 other people were injured.
Yeah.
There was a shootout with the police that also injured some bystanders. And sadly, part of the reason that attack occurred was because the city was replacing a lot of the bollards around Bourbon Street in preparation for the Super Bowl. So security was really, really tight. There's a quote from the police department superintendent, Ann Kirkpatrick. She said they had 3,000 officers from agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, the Louisiana State Police, that were stationed all throughout the French Quarter. They banned traffic from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. They cut off all the access to Bourbon Street from every side street. And then there were checkpoints inside to make sure people didn't have, explosives or weapons or anything like that. So security was, we're very good in this country at responding to the last thing that happened, but not preventing the next tragedy.
Well, you brought
the mood down.
Brought me and Rollie on this podcast to crack wise and make our little jokes, and it doesn't feel like the right moment to do that here. I will say, if they are closing traffic from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. during the Super Bowl, it does sort of raise a question of why can't that be a more permanent solution in the area?
The fact that America is still struggling so hard to install basic infrastructure like bollards, that in other wealthy countries, it's just routine to have retractable bollards that just work and they protect your nice pedestrian areas in the centers of your cities, which is, exactly as you say, Nicole. Bourbon Street should be in the center of a very large, permanently pedestrianized zone in the middle of New Orleans. There's no reason to have cars going through there. It's just tragic. This has happened so many times before. It had happened in Europe just recently before this. People use vehicles this way to attack other people because they're very effective weapons. That's what it is. They're really good weapons, and we don't make provision for that in the way that we should.
Yeah, it's like that Onion article that how could this possibly have happened, says nation where the only nation where shootings happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally butchered that Onion headline.
No, you nailed it.
So ubiquitous. Yeah, I don't know. They do this in New York. Bourbon Street's the most trafficked street that I can think of in America. People are always there. They're walking around. They got giant plastic guitars full of margaritas and put some fucking big rocks around there. They do this in New York. They just plop giant boulders and cars can't go in there. Why do we need cars to be mixing it up with the people?
It is crazy that there are many places in America, I'm thinking of Los Angeles specifically, where they've figured out they can put stuff in the way to stop homeless people from living there, but they can't make the jump to cars.
I think it's called hostile architecture.
Yeah, especially because New Orleans did do a massive sweep of homeless people before the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Because if you put them out of sight, they just don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I do have good news.
Okay.
Hey. And that is that racism is over.
Okay, good.
Because
awesome.
The NFL, you might remember that in the wake of George Floyd in 2020, the NFL put end racism in the end zones.
Uh-huh.
That's gone now.
Uh-huh.
They took it out. It was replaced with choose love. Did you guys notice this?
Yes, I noticed it on the Chiefs helmets. Yeah.
Also, I just gotta say, to put end racism in the end zone, that's like you're just sort of renaming zone racism. I'm just realizing that.
I will say that Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, has said that the NFL is going to stick with its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which is pretty interesting. And on Monday before the Super Bowl, Goodell said, "We got into diversity efforts because we felt it was the right thing for the National Football League, and we're going to continue those efforts because we've not only convinced ourselves, I think we've proven ourselves that it does make the NFL better. We're not in this because it's a trend to get in or a trend to get out of it. Our efforts are fundamental in trying to attract the best possible talent into the National Football League, both on and off the field." I would just like to say that I did not have this on my bingo card, that the NFL was going to actually make an articulate defense of DEI programs.
No matter how you identify, you are allowed to get a concussion.
That's right.
That we will not treat.
That's right.
Also, again, rooting for the Eagles is not praxis, but I just got to say, Jalen Hurts, entirely female management team. And he has gone on record several times about being like, I didn't pick them because they're women. I picked them because I wanted the best team. What a guy, huh?
I did want to read the statement for why they went with Choose Love. And this is a statement from an NFL spokesperson, Brian McCarthy. Choose Love is appropriate to use as our country has endured in recent weeks wildfires in Southern California, the terrorist attack here in New Orleans, the plane and helicopter crash near our nation's capital, and the plane crash in Philadelphia.
Choosing love only would have helped one of those situations.
What is this list? Just bad things recently that we could think of in the past 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah. And Starbucks messed up my order.
Yeah.
Right.
If only the Southern California wildfires had chosen love.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk about the ads on the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So some quick stats. This year, a 30-second ad on the Super Bowl cost up to $8 million, depending on where it was placed.
Bargain.
That's up from $7 million last year. It's, inflation, price of eggs hitting everybody.
Yes.
And maybe we should talk about some of the folks who didn't advertise, especially since you guys are so climate focused.
Sure.
State Farm, the insurance company, did not advertise. Last year, they had one of the top rated ads. Like, people loved that ad with Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to say, like a good neighbor.
Yes.
State Farm is there, if you remember that.
Woof.
So cute.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut. Hey, Arnold, I'm hearing neighbor. It's neighbor.
That's what I said. Neighbor.
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 So they were out this year largely because of the fires in California and Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, you
And-
don't want to advertise and then be like a good neighbor, unless you live in Southern
Or
California.
Florida, a lot of Florida also.
Yeah, if you're not
Coast.
going to insure those homes, you don't want to be
Gulf
advertising that service.
Yeah.
Because they did, in fact, announce last year that they would not renew about 70,000 policies in California. So,
Like a good neighbor, we'll leave you alone.
Yeah, like a good neighbor, we are moving to a safer place. Yeah.
probably not a good look to spend $8 million on an ad plus production costs when you're denying claims for
Yeah,
someone's home.
sorry we can't rebuild your childhood home. But
Yeah.
also, Martha Stewart is dancing. How fun is that?
We had to get Kieran Culkin to play pickleball against The Rock. So sorry.
State Farm had also really raised rates in California because they're basically now catching up to the reality that insuring homes in disaster-prone areas, which is just basically now the United States, is really expensive. They raised rates an average of 22% last year, and for every dollar they've collected in premiums, they're spending $1.26.
Yeah, I can't remember if I've recommended this on our podcast. I don't think so. But if you haven't read Mike Davis, The Case for Letting Malibu Burn, he goes into more detail about how insurance rates have long been way too low in California. And that's what's encouraged people to build farther into places that are going to burn. Really good read.
And I mean, I think you're seeing this sort of reality check of the insurance industry is going to be a huge story over the next few years because the money's just not there. The insurance is not there. Anyone who has to pay for home insurance or car insurance has felt it. I mean, the price of eggs is really a footnote to the price of insurance, and it's not changing. And then it's going to be uninsurable. There's just not even going to be such a thing as insurance for many people. And
well, you guys mentioned the god Donald Shoup at the top of the podcast, and his whole deal is the externalities of this thing are not being priced, and we are all essentially subsidizing people to make choices that hurt all of us, and the insurance market is kind of the same way.
So State Farm was not the only notable absence at this. I mean, we do this show because traditionally this has been a huge place for car companies to promote their products, yet this time there was very little explicit car content. Is that right?
That's right. There are only 2 car ads from a major brand. That's Stellantis. So Jeep and Ram.
How does that compare to how it used to be?
Yeah, so it's down by a lot. Hyundai, Kia, they've advertised in 14 consecutive Super Bowls. They were out. Nothing from Ford, nothing from Audi, Mercedes, nothing. This is a part of a trend. This is a report from Paul Hebert in Adweek. The automotive category accounted for 40% of commercial airtime in 2012, and it declined to 8% in 2024.
Wow.
So,
precipitous.
Yes, big drop off. Lots of reasons for this, lots of uncertainty with Trump ending EV subsidies. Nobody knows where the market is going to go. Sales are good, but slower than I think a lot of people have been hoping. The media landscape is changing. You know, you can spend a lot of money on a Super Bowl ad and then it's kind of one and done. Nobody really sees it after that. So they're focusing on quote unquote new media like Instagram, social media.
I mean, like if you advertise on the war on cars, you can just get so much more for your money.
That's right.
I was going to say, the war on cars advertising is, I think, 11.5 times more effective than a Super Bowl.
That's
dollar
we
for
punch
dollar.
way above our weight. we
right.
are against taking car company money. I can say that.
All right,
yes.
let me just ask the war on cars this officially. If Mercedes came to you and was like, we get all your anti-car bullshit or whatever, but we will pay you $40 million to run a Mercedes ad, would you do it?
Can I shut down the podcast after running that ad? Like, what's the? Do I have to keep
For
it going?
$40 million, I think you can do whatever you want.
You got to keep it going for 6 months.
I don't know. I say yes. We take the cash.
$40 million? How is this a debate at all?
Yeah, exactly.
I would say yes so fast they couldn't finish the question.
Yeah, thank you. And then we just spend that money
destroying
them, right? If we can, then
I
we
would
can.
like to note that I hesitated, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
It is.
Does
Sorry,
that count?
The money,
Yeah.
The money is in Mercedes gift cards.
Oh no! Oh
Sorry.
no!
I mean, you can flip those on one of those gift card flipping websites. Still get $20 million out of it.
That's right.
Yeah, like I think that's a good deal. I would take it. Mercedes, please make note of that. But yeah, it's they're
Quick
just
note about Mercedes.
Oh
is, everybody loves to blame BMW drivers for being bad, but whenever I was walking my dog when I was living in La Crescenta in Los Angeles, always the Mercedes was the one who came closest to killing me. Every time. Almost on every walk, I would almost
Was
get
it a
hit by
particular Mercedes or just Mercedes
No,
in general?
it's sort of a popular area for Mercedes, and boy, I've almost gotten flattened by a lot of Mercedes.
Did they ever get you, though?
No.
Surgical precision, these Mercedes drivers. Immaculate drivers.
This segment was brought to you by BMW.
That's right.
So sorry.
Which just paid us $40 million. Thanks. That's it. We're done.
Sorry to indecent proposal, you guys.
I was surprised how few, because I watched it knowing I was going to do this podcast today. Wouldn't it be funny if I didn't realize I was going to be here until
We sprung this
morning?
on you. Yeah.
I watched it knowing I was going to do this podcast, and there was a moment last night where I was like, I hope we have something to talk about, because there were not a lot of car commercials.
We're going to get to the real car ads, but I think there were a lot of car adjacent ads that say something about car culture and climate. You know, we were talking right before we started recording that every year there's a trend. You know, there's some industry that sort of represents where we are as a country. Last year it was crypto. This year was AI. Did you guys notice? Like, did you guys?
How could we not notice it?
Yes,
it was like every other
Yes.
commercial.
Were there any that stood out?
The Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey ones stood out, both because I just kept being like, man, this commercial sucks, but Matthew McConaughey is such a good actor. He's so good. I can't imagine anybody else doing this in a way that doesn't actively make me want to kill myself. But also, all the things he's doing with AI are like, it would be faster to do this without AI.
Absolutely.
AI
Just do
would
it
make
yourself.
all of these tasks
Did
much
you see
harder.
the one that
where
was
he's sitting in the rain?
Yes.
I don't need AI to not book a table at an outdoor restaurant in a rainstorm.
Yeah,
That's
and
not an AI problem.
I know that was very confusing, and also why would the people who owned the restaurant seat him outside during a rainstorm? I don't think they needed AI to make that decision.
My guess is the restaurant was using AI, and they made him sit out there because the AI.
We've
didn't know what
calculated the
weather-
optimal table for Matthew McConaughey.
I did. So I one Google Pixel 9 AI commercial stood out to me because I was trying to clock any time a car was present in any commercial. I thought
You did your homework.
This would really be, I'll go above and beyond. I'll give you quantity, not quality here.
Okay.
And in the Google Pixel 9, there were 2 beats in a car where the car was like, it was like a dad raising his little girl and being like such a team player. By the way, like all these commercials where the dad is like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm raising my kid with my wife, and it's like, that's like, you're not a hero for doing the bare minimum for this.
Congrats, right?
But yeah, but also there were two moments where he was teaching his daughter how to drive, and she did the classic like thinks she's reversing and then punches into a garbage can. Not the it was an open garage and a garbage can. She hit the garbage can because they're like, we can't show damage. And then the last beat was him crying in his minivan as he dropped her off at college. And I think that really gets people because they're being emotionally manipulative. But it's like, look how many important life moments happen when you're in the car.
Yeah, totally.
And that bummed me out.
Is that the same commercial where he was like preparing for a job interview where he was like, my last role involved a lot of negotiation?
I think that's the same commercial.
Because he was a stay-at-home dad, and he was like,
you're
how
not
can
getting
I
that job, brother.
I've had enough bullshit jobs where I've tried to be like, well, my experience running the carousel at the zoo would qualify for me for this executive VP position. Where it's like, this isn't, AI's not going to help you with it.
That ad made me so sad, actually, for the state of things, because it was basically like, do you have no friends, no family who have ever had experience raising children? Are you not married because your wife has no opinions on like what you should do?
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of the AI stuff, much like the weather, seating outside in the rain, restaurant ad, is basically like, do you not know how to ask people stuff? You can ask a robot instead.
It really does feel like the AI commercials are the steering wheel from the movie WALL-E, where they're just like, you guys just don't even worry about making any decision in the future. Like, don't ever use that part of your brain that like helps you navigate society, because we're going to take care of it for you and you're going to love it.
But I mean, you're right about the cars being this sort of ambient thing, that's just a condition of his life and his relationship with his daughter that is just ambiently there all the time. And that's why it works in the narrative. And there was another ad that is not a car ad at all. It was a Taco Bell ad. It was sort of, I think the thing was, there were some celebrities talking, but it's like, oh no, let's not have celebrities. We're just going to have regular people. And it was all like these kind of Polaroid shots of people in their cars eating Taco Bell.
This is Taco Bell's celebration of its fans. Behold, a bunch of randos, not famous people.
Wait, what?
Sorry, big guy.
But I'm Doja.
Yeah, but celebs don't make Taco Bell Taco Bell. Fans do.
It was all car, but it was Taco Bell, and it was just this idea that like, this is your life. This is your life. You're in your car, and you're having Taco Bell. Like, that is the American condition.
And when you are in a car, you are the star of your own story. No one else is involved in that narrative at all.
Yeah. 100%.
Now,
I will
especially
say,
not the person that I just drove over. That guy is a speed bump on my way to a chalupa gordita.
That's right.
I will say probably about half the times I've eaten Taco Bell have been in a car.
I think it's tastes better that way, probably.
Okay, so then there were some ads that I'm qualifying or categorizing as Make America Suburban again. I feel like there was a trend a bunch of years ago to show like hip, young urbanites, like Friends style, like hanging out in coffee shops or walking down city streets with their AirPods on or whatever. So there was the Bud Light cul-de-sac party.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, where Shane Gillis and Post Malone are best friends.
Yep.
That makes sense to me, actually.
You gonna go fishing tomorrow? I got a colonoscopy tomorrow.
Fellas, I accidentally threw a lane
Right,
party.
so we see like the lawnmower busting through the fence, the big case of Bud Light.
They're here. You call this a party? Cul-de-sac party. Launch. These beers are a metaphor for an invitation.
Is that our leaf blower?
Party at the sack.
It's not a metaphor if it's a literal invitation.
You are cordially invited to the end of the cul-de-sac.
This is incredible.
Your mower smokes meat?
Oh, a smoker cuts grass.
Hell yeah.
I spent most
And then
of
we
my
have
money on
one
this.
of the Mannings,
Your rig?
Peyton.
Fully custom.
That was Peyton.
Peyton.
How many Bud Lights can you fit in that puppy? As many Bud Lights as it takes. A lot of Bud Lights. This cul-de-sac's popping. Bill, get off the
All
boat.
right,
The
so
HOA's
we
already
have a
breathing
big
down my
party
neck.
at the end of the cul-de-sac with Huey Lewis and the News playing. What do we think?
I loved it. I thought it was really funny. I don't know. It's obviously like trying to harken us back to like, hey, wouldn't it be more fun if we got out of our urban centers and really sprawled this thing out once and for all? But like, those guys are really funny and they did a funny job, I thought. And Peyton Manning's my favorite Manning because he won the Super Bowl for the Broncos.
Also, this is something that I'm going to talk about when we get to the Jeep ad, but I feel like every commercial this year especially, but it's been building since like 2008, every commercial is trying to be like sort of an Old Spice, like sort of nonsensical fever dream of a commercial
now,
but when every commercial is like that, this all sucks. And so I think the Bud Light commercial, just from a strictly narrative perspective, works a little better for me just because it all takes place in one universe. It's clearly a joke, but it isn't like we put Seal's head on a seal. Isn't that wacky?
So disturbing.
Not as disturbing as the cowboy hat. Like
the flesh hats.
The flesh hats.
Flesh hat.
Yeah.
Kill that man.
That was for some streaming service, right?
Tubi, yeah.
Tubi.
I mean, they got us, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about it.
We're talking about it. I'm sorry, Nicole, I cut you off.
No, that's it.
Let's
It's
talk about
just,
flesh
it's
hats.
like the commercials that stood out to me are the ones that are like, oh, this one's just kind of like fun and normal, as opposed to the ones that are like, we get it. You want to be Old Spice circa 2010.
And they even had him in there.
That was in the Instacart.
I'm going to just say one thing about the Bud Light commercial that is going to be unpopular, but like when they were firing off the cans of Bud Light.
Not how leaf blowers work.
I also just like kept thinking of like rubber bullets or something. Like I was like, somebody's going to get killed.
That's a metal bullet.
You can't. It's not a T-shirt.
Look,
it's
if they
like
defund the government, the only way they'll be able to pay for things like policing protests is through sponsorships. So.
Bud Light presents nightsticks.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, sorry.
It really did bum me out.
Dark.
It's obvious. It seems obvious to me that Shane Gillis, a very funny comedian, shot the can and then turned to the camera and said, these cans are a metaphor for an invitation. And then a guy picked the can out of the water bucket and read the invitation to the party on it. That's not a fucking metaphor. That's a literal invitation.
There does seem to be widespread misunderstanding. This is what happens when you cut humanities education. Is there's a widespread misunderstanding of metaphor in the world right now. I don't know if you guys have seen this Elon Musk ball of worms.
Oh, yes.
Quote, but I can't get over it. It's I'm calling this car adjacent because it's Elon Musk and Elon owns Tesla.
For sure.
But he was
Nicole
talking about...
can make anything car adjacent into Kevin Bacon.
She's right at home. She's right at home.
Yeah, 2 degrees of separation from car adjacency. He has this quote where he was talking about defunding USAID, and he's like, well, what we found when we got into USAID is instead of being an apple with a worm in it, what it really is just a bowl of worms.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a bowl of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a bowl of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a bowl of worms. Mm-hmm. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
And it's like, okay, not the best metaphor, but it's a metaphor. But then he spends the next 90 seconds being like, and when you have a bowl of worms, you can't save it. You have to get rid of people don't like worms. So you have to get rid of all of the worms, which represent problems with USAID. In this metaphor, the worms are the problems and you want to get rid of the problems. So you have to get rid of the worms. And it's like, you have to have some faith in what your metaphor is.
My guess is that Shane Gillis was given license to riff, and so he riffed that, and they had already shot the thing with the guy reading it as an invitation.
Yeah.
And they're just like, fuck it, put it all in the ad. Yeah. Who's going to care? Who's going to know?
Rollie Williams
will know.
I think the other reason that this ad works for me is that Rollie and I are at a point in our lives where our like hip, cool friends are becoming dads and living that lifestyle. And it does feel like we're getting into party dad in the suburbs territory. So
it's appealing. I mean, the grill alone, I feel like I would like space for a grill. So it's appealing. I like the ad. I did like the ad.
Yeah, I mean, bring face tattoos to the suburbs.
Yeah.
I mean, our generation is.
Yes.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. There was another one that I also feel like highlights the kind of urban suburban divide, and that was from Rocket, the mortgage company. Okay, so we see a pregnant woman standing in a in an apartment building, I guess, then crossing a New York City bridge to the suburbs. Lots of cute babies. Empty house that someone's walking into, painting and fixing up. Tender moments.
Military plane.
Yep.
Interesting.
Moving van on a country road, as the song says.
I belong.
Everyone's singing along to this classic. It is a great song.
Oh, yeah. And then they cut to the Super Bowl stadium and they were all singing this song.
Yep. And then it says, everyone deserves a shot at the American dream. Own the dream from Rocket.
Yep. And the woman, I think it's the woman who was pregnant at the beginning. You see her at the end with the baby in a beautiful little suburban home. She still looks kind of concerned, though, and who can blame her?
Which is wild because all of the people that I know with kids in the city are like, we are desperate to raise our kids in the city and there is no housing for us.
Yes.
So Rocket Mortgage could just as easily have been like, get a mortgage on one of the 6 3-bedroom apartments left in New York City. But it's home ownership is in the American mind so tied to the standalone home.
The white picket fence.
Well, and it's the idea of like the only place to raise your kids is in the suburbs. Like I know a lot of people who like got pregnant in a big city and their families were like, well, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to move to the suburbs. There is this idea of like the city being a place for you to like live your 20s. Yeah. It's like, no, there's millions of people in New York City of all ages. People have lived here their whole lives.
Largest public school system in the country. Sarah and I have both raised children in the city, and I love raising my kids in the city. But I recognize that it's really hard.
I was raised in this city.
Yeah.
You know, like this city made me who I am. So I'm very happy with that. But yeah, I mean, that the woman at the beginning looking in concern at her pregnant belly, it's such an archetype of the pregnant woman who is having to flee to another place to bring her child into a safe world. And that's sort of what I thought it was. It's like, oh, you're in this dangerous place, you know, your child could be at risk if you don't get out of there. That's how I read that.
Also, her apartment looked pretty big.
I know. It was like
I saw that apartment and I was like, you can never leave that apartment.
Yeah.
Unless that's a studio, you are raising that baby in that apartment.
She had a great view.
Like corner windows.
You had to establish that it was New York City, but they were like, well, if we do that, then that's going to be a nice ass apartment. But they just went with it.
Like she could totally have afforded to move to Brooklyn for sure.
Yeah.
So this one was The Fast and the Furious with Michelle Rodriguez, Vin Diesel, and Ludacris, except this time they're going slow. All right, so they take off, and then Michelle whips out a Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar.
Vin, watch the road.
Yeah,
they
Vin's
never look at the road.
Stretching his arms out. He's got an ice cream bar.
Hey, what happened to Fast Life?
Not today.
What? Are y'all kidding me?
Did you guys also clock that when Ludacris drove past him, it was a 2-lane road, so he wasn't breaking the law? And then when it cut back to the car, it was a 1-lane road?
Yes.
But Ludacris, famously, he's doing 100 on the highway. And if you're doing the speed limit, get the fuck out of my way. He doesn't care about the rules of the road.
I think it's sort of cute. It's sort of
I
nice.
love. I mean, look, I've said on the show before that like my guilty pleasure as a War on Cars host are the Fast and the Furious movies. I enjoy them when they're terrible. They're still great. I love all of the actors. Like Vin Diesel only shows up in those movies now, or I Am Groot in in the Marvel universe, and I find him to be really kind of charming, even when the acting is terrible. And
Michelle
it's
Rodriguez was so good in the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
She's really good.
Great
in
job.
it. Yeah.
And back on Lost, like she's amazing. She's really great. So I don't know. I enjoy that. But yeah, eyes on the road, folks.
All I can think of is that road is eroding into the Pacific Ocean, like as we speak. That road that is so iconic in so many ways, either the houses along it are burning in Malibu, the whole thing is in flames, or It's Big Sur and it's sliding into the ocean. It's a lovely road. I have driven way too fast down those roads myself. But and I wasn't even furious. I was just fast.
All right.
I mean, look, then you better enjoy your ice cream while you can on that road.
That's
because they're both going to melt away.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a quick backstory about I love the show Lost. It's one of my favorite shows.
Great show.
But they kept on killing cast members off because they kept getting DUIs in Hawaii.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Michelle Rodriguez got killed off of the show Lost because she got a DUI in Hawaii.
That is right.
Which is
I
maybe
totally
why
forgot.
she's not the one driving. Vin Diesel's driving.
TIL. Okay.
All right, so the next one is from a Super Bowl, long-standing Super Bowl advertiser, WeatherTech, which is based in Illinois.
Wow, same stretch of highway.
Yep.
So we see a bunch of older women driving a car. So this is basically like the Golden Girls meets Thelma and Louise.
Right. They're spray painting trucks and
Just causing
flashing
havoc wherever they go.
Community meetings and their tea is spilling on their WeatherTech. Yes.
And they get arrested for speeding.
I mean, you don't get arrested for speeding, so those women must have done something much worse. They did blow something up.
Well, I mean, the first beat was that they were going too slow and all the cars are driving around them because they go slow because they're older ladies. And then the closer is that they were going too fast, and so the cop got them.
It's dramaturgically
Ads
uneven.
don't make internal sense to me.
But what this ad taps into that as an older woman I think about quite a bit is this idea of older women being invisible and usually being able to get away with whatever they want to get away with. And in this case, they are so flagrant that they can't get away with it. But it reminds me of, in one of my favorite movies, Mad Max Fury Road, the old lady biker gang at the end, when it's time to save civilization and the chips are down. It's the old women who have hoarded the seeds and kept the culture alive, who at the end are like, you know what? And now we're going to sacrifice our bodies to save the future generations. And they flame out. And that's always been, since I saw that movie, I've decided those are my role models. And as I get older, I'm ready to just take one for the team, go down hard. And anyway, that's what I thought of when I saw that commercial.
WeatherTech. Kill yourself for the good of society.
Exactly.
Learn to be a sniper, WeatherTech.
I think, Nicole, to your earlier point about how like a lot of the ads all seem like one part of the same, like tonally, they're all sort of just like chaos at every moment. WeatherTech in years past, they've done some silly ads, but they used to focus on, made in the USA, employing local people. And this year they just went for it. And they're just like, no, we're going to have the Golden Girls just like drive off a cliff and blow shit up.
So they just have Super Bowl money, WeatherTech?
This is what I can't understand. So they were founded in the 90s. Their CEO is a big Trump supporter who broke with Trump over the DACA stuff because he was going to deport someone who worked for WeatherTech.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yeah.
The moment it affects them personally, they're like, oh, right, fascism is bad because it hurts people.
I always love when people say, I didn't vote for this, and no one ever says, can you explain exactly what it is that you voted for? Like, that's what I would love to hear.
Common sense is what they will say
Eggs
back.
being whatever price they were, I don't remember, but whatever price they were before this, that's what I voted for.
But I can spend $7 million on a ad for my company. So yeah, they famously, I think, run like 2 ads per year. I don't know if this year they ran a second one. I think that was the only one. So they've got some money. I mean, you think about it.
To be fair, can you name one other brand of floor mats?
Kevin's floor mats.
All right. So, but I think we should get to the actual car ads. So there was an ad for Polestar 3, the electric car, the non-Tesla electric car. It wasn't that interesting. It just kind of showed the car driving.
I literally didn't. I'm going to confess that I didn't notice that happened.
I
Same.
barely remember.
Are you sure there was an ad for Polestar?
Yeah,
I
think
see
it
it.
aired
The only reason that
after
I
the
know
halftime
there
show.
was is that I remember thinking to myself, wow, only 2 ads for cars.
Wow.
And also both for EVs, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, so the Goldilocks and the 3 trucks ad from Ram. Here it is.
Once upon a time, there was a girl with golden locks. You know what? Maybe it was like a rugged, woodsy dude. Yeah. Too hard, too soft, too...
So this is that Glenn
Goldilocks
Powell
wanted
guy.
something tastier.
Those look just
And he sees 3 trucks outside of his
First, he
window.
drove the Ram 2500 Rebel to pick up some dinner.
And fight a dragon.
It just kills a dragon that was minding its own
Next,
business.
he took the Ram Charger deep into the woods to
apex
flex his
species.
artistic muscles.
This is the electric.
Then he fired up the Ram RHO for a little joyride.
Jumps a volcano, screaming freedom.
What about the 3 bears?
This is my story. But yeah, the bears were there.
There are bears in the truck.
Happily ever after. Sort of.
And then
And they're driving
Panama
off into
by Van Halen for some reason.
Yeah, and it says drive your own story at the
yeah,
end.
and they're driving into the other iconic American car landscape, which is the desert. That's like it's either you're on Route 1 in California or you're driving into the desert.
We'll talk about that in the Jeep ad too, but that is a longstanding tradition of SUVs and trucks. Before we get into this, I gotta say, Glenn Powell, one of the only true movie stars of this generation. He's got star power. Glenn, if you're listening to the War on Cars podcast, I would love to work with you someday.
To me, like he's
very handsome.
He's like one of the Chris's, though. I am so confused by these people. There's like all those Chris's, right? Like Hemsworth and all the other ones.
Well, we had Hemsworth and Pratt in an ad for
Right.
Meta for Ray-Ban, so that
Clearly
that
we
did
get the
happen.
other 2 Chris's.
Yeah.
And this just seems like he's kind of another Chris, and I just am very confused.
It
like
might
they're
be the
all
wig
the same
that he
to
was
me.
wearing. that
Yeah,
he
the
has a
wig
sort
makes
of
him look like
Thor.
Yeah. I've never seen him in a movie.
Twisters. He's in
I didn't
Twisters,
see it.
which is actually pretty fun.
I'm sure it's great. I just missed it. And
Yeah, I mean, it's like not the greatest movie, but it is fun.
He's very good in it. He's also in Hitman, which I think was it's his character reel, and he's good in it. I think the movie's a little uneven. He's so talented. Star power, baby. He was in that movie Anyone But You. He was in Hidden Figures. I think he was in The Dark
I saw
He
that.
Yes,
for
he's
like
in The Dark
a
Knight
second.
for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give him a chance. But in this, I mean, I thought it was interesting. He was sort of cross-dressing, which was a little, I mean, it's like it starts out with Goldilocks.
It didn't like hit me as cross-dressing as much, just because there are so many like, the long blonde-haired Fabio, for instance, is in cross-dress.
Of
So
course.
I just sort of
I
felt
thought
like
he
it
was supposed to be Goldilocks.
He was.
Yeah,
he
that's,
had
but I
golden-
guess what's
Goldilocks
confusing
just
to
means
me.
blonde.
Goldilocks doesn't canonically have to be a girl, and that is sexist.
Wow, how woke of
me.
you to make Goldilocks a girl.
Now, I thank you for correcting me. I realize now that I was just being too rigid in my vision of Goldilocks. I feel chastened.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says she can't be actor Glenn Powell.
Ain't no rules as a
Glenn
man
Powell
can't play
can't be
Goldilocks.
The thing that struck me about this is like the car companies have just given up on telling you anything about what the cars do.
Yeah.
or
What's
what
the
their
product?
features
Literally
are.
zero features
Yeah.
of the car were
Yeah.
described,
Yeah.
other than you're driving your own story.
The only thing you learn is that the Ram Charger is a plug-in. That's all
Yeah.
you learn. That's it.
I guess, again, I'm going to pick a bone with the concept of the ad, where it's Goldilocks is about 3 choices, 2 of which being extremely wrong, bad choices.
Yeah.
And yet he's like, oh, there's actually 3 trucks and they're all awesome and we love them all.
Well,
I'm
but
just
then
like-
then it's the meta world of Glenn telling the story. So maybe with canonically in the ad, Glenn Powell doesn't understand Goldilocks and the 3
You
bears.
don't get any points for saying, oh, the character actually is dumb and fucked this up. That's why we fucked it up. Not because we don't know how to write an ad, but because the character misinterpreted.
But the tagline is
fable.
drive your own story. So like, once you've gone woke with Glenn Powell as as Goldilocks, you can just do whatever the hell you want, right?
That's true.
I mean, like, he was driving his truck to where a dragon lives, a dragon's home. He drove his truck to a dragon's home. The dragon was like, what the fuck, dude? And he murdered the dragon.
Yeah, we haven't established that the dragon was doing anything wrong.
No, it was hanging out. It's where it lives.
Yeah.
That bummed me out.
That's what rams are for, is to go and ram into things and destroy
and cut down a
them.
tree and carve your own likeness into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To your point earlier about you're the main character as the or your point. I don't know.
I think it was
Nobody on the podcast can see who I'm pointing at, so whoever I said it, it's
Yeah.
right. The point about the driver being the main character, like this is literally drive your own story. When you are behind the wheel of the car, you are the main character, not the pedestrians. You are not a main character.
Not the dragon you've gone to murder.
Right.
Yes,
and also,
exactly.
like, these are the biggest fucking trucks I've ever seen. Like,
They're
I
huge.
today I was riding a bike here, and I got stuck behind a lifted, monstrously large truck, and it wouldn't go around there was like a car stopped on the side of the road, and I was just like trying to ride my bike around it, and it just stopped, and it blocked the whole fucking street. And I'm just like, these are so big. It's a goddamn arms race to see who can have the biggest, heaviest truck. And yeah, this is what this commercial really embodied for me.
I wonder if that isn't part of why they have to show them in environments where you will never drive. Because if they showed them in a Walmart parking lot or like a downtown, your first thing would be like, that is so absurdly out of place.
Yeah.
It's like bigger than the store it's parked in front
You
of.
need 2 meters to park your car.
Yeah, exactly.
When Jordan and I were in Denver during the early part of the pandemic, and we didn't have a car, we were borrowing Jordan's dad's, I think it was an F-150. I can't remember what it was now. This was so many years ago. But like I've driven, when I was like on student films and stuff in college, I would drive 10-foot box trucks in the city all the time. And it's not convenient, but it's not a problem. And driving this fucking big pickup truck was such a pain in the ass. Not even like it's hard to drive. It's just like, where the fuck do I put this thing? It's so inconvenient. And that's like such a good point about like, well, it makes sense when you're in the desert where there's nothing and you can park it anywhere. But if you're trying to do anything in an inhabited place, it's just inconvenient.
And those box trucks often have better visibility than the Ram pickups because the box trucks will have like a flat front where the windshield is just the front of it, and you can see everything in front of you, whereas these have just terrible sight lines and pillars that you can't see when you're turning and that kind of stuff.
But I think also like the use of Glenn Powell, who is sort of a, he is that movie star, a sort of a suave movie star, like he's not like that super, super macho, aggressive thing, especially as he's portrayed here, reading this story to children.
Yeah.
He's like a nice guy, right? And so that kind of takes the edge off of like the incredibly scary vibe of the Ram, which is, so I think it like gives it a little bit of like non-toxic masculinity sheen on top of this terrifying like assertion of power that those trucks really are.
Also, I just realized this, like when we refer to a building, it's like a 1-story building. Do you think Drive Your Own Story is about how massive the truck is? Like drive a story.
I don't think
No?
I don't
Okay.
think
All
that.
right,
No.
all right. Cut this.
Yeah, I think yeah.
I think, there was the part of that commercial where he's jumping over a volcano yelling freedom, which is perhaps a good segue to the second car ad.
Yes.
So an interesting thing is that all of these ads have been online for at least a week. Like I've been prepping for this episode and pulling clips and all the rest. But the Jeep ad that we've referenced a couple of times was not online until immediately after it aired. And it aired right after the half, which had it been a close game, probably would have been a really good place for it to air. But since it was essentially a blowout at that point, I'm imagining it was not the best place. Still, let's watch this one.
Longest thing we ever do is live our lives.
And that's Harrison Ford.
But life doesn't come with an owner's manual. Might have been nice, huh? But that means we get to write our own stories.
Again, writing your own story.
Yeah.
Freedom is yes or no or maybe. Freedom is for everybody.
And then we
But
see
it isn't free.
Jeeps and military action from World War II,
There
black
are
and white
real
footage.
heroes in the world.
Great
but not
dog.
the ones in
Great
the
dog in this
movies.
ad.
Yep.
Real heroes are humble. They're
Military
not
service
driven by
member
Pride.
hugging a child.
Pride is a terrible driver. Freedom is the roar of one man's engine and the silence of another's.
Gas-powered
Freedom
car
is the
versus
ability
electric
to
car.
That was
inspire.
a hybrid, I think, right?
The most sacred thing in life isn't the path. It's the freedom to choose it. You don't have to be friends with someone to wave at them.
Jeep wave.
We won't always agree on which way to go,
We see two paths going in different directions.
but our
One's
differences
electric.
can be our strength.
One's a plug-in hybrid.
So choose, but choose wisely. Choose what makes you happy.
And that
My
does show
friends, my
him
family.
unplugging his car before he
My
starts.
Choose
work
wisely.
Make me happy. This Jeep makes me happy, even though my name is. That's my owner's manual. Get out there, write your own.
Little nod to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Choose wisely. I thought that had to be deliberate,
Oh,
right?
that's nice.
That
I
had to
didn't
be
realize
deliberate.
that.
You don't just put that in there. What did you guys think?
I have a lot of thoughts about this ad.
Me too.
First of all, I think like this is the most traditional Super Bowl style, like we love America and freedom and the troops.
Or not
ad.
freedom. Or maybe freedom.
Yeah.
How are we going to sell these Jeeps?
It is interesting. They clearly know that their customer base is guys who go off-roading and maybe wear MAGA hats, but they know that they need to move these plug-in hybrids. And so they need to use this commercial to be like, you're not any less of a man if you plug your car in. I have to say, as a car hater, obviously I can't endorse any car ad.
What if they gave you $40 million?
Then I'm endorsing every car. Go buy a Hummer. If you give me $40 million, I will advertise whatever you want. But as a climate advocate who thinks we need to be moving as many people to plug-in options as possible, I mean, I don't think the Jeep Hybrid is a particularly good car, but if that's the car we're advertising, I think this is probably the way to do it, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are just never going to get on board with like an all-electric car, and getting them into a plug-in Jeep is probably advantageous.
My take on this ad is that it felt so limp-wristed and like, hey, guys, everyone's fighting. I know we're all fighting, but one thing we can all agree on is that everybody needs cars right now. And it just felt like, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or even liberal, like everyone get a car. And it just felt so pandery to all sidesy. And also my dad worked at Boy Scout camp with Harrison Ford.
Really?
That's not technically related, but I think it's important to tell people
gotta
on
get
this
that in there.
podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. He went by Harry Ford back then.
This ad reminded me, do you guys remember the middle ad with Bruce Springsteen from 2021? It was also a Jeep ad.
Yes.
And so, that's coming just off the heels of a very contentious election.
Didn't they use some of the same World War II footage in
I
that
think they
ad?
also
I think
showed
they
World
did,
War II
yeah.
footage. And
I mean, look, if you got cool footage of your cars falling out of airplanes,
in the
only
only
gotta
war
use
that we
the hell out of
definitely
that.
were the heroes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it reminded me of that, of Bruce basically saying, like, there's a spot in America where, like, yeah, you might be from, like, the coast and an elite. You might be a red state, farmer, but we can meet here in the middle. And we can all agree, like you said, we need cars.
Yeah.
And it's that same gravelly voice, like a rugged hero of pop culture that we all trust and love. Yeah, it was really, but pandering at the same time.
But like, to me, it also was this, I had this weird, poignant feeling of that watching that ad with this old man, Harrison Ford, that used to be, a young, hot man who
Still
was still hot, but
Shrinking, he's great in shrinking. by the way.
but like he used to symbolize something in a different America, the America that I was a young person in. And there was something to me very poignant and sad about this old guy saying, like, no, we can all get along on, in February 2025. No, we can't, actually. And that was a really cool 20th century idea that, like, has been proven wrong over the last 2 decades. And we can't actually all get along. And I'm sorry, Gramps, but like that America is gone. And that is how it made me feel. It just made me actually feel weirdly, as someone who is not usually the customer for like the American flag on the side of the barn and the fields of wheat and the, you know, all of that, and Bruce Springsteen. But I was like, God, that was kind of a lot better than what we have now. And it made me sad for that.
I do think it was a more effective message of unity than that Snoop Dogg
Tom Brady commercial.
We
have to talk about
the tonal
that shit.
cousin of this ad.
Yeah, that is just like sort of a less effective. Like you could always wave at people you don't like, whereas like Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg, maybe not in the same room at the same time, based on the way it was shot, like shouting at each other.
I hate you because we're from different neighborhoods.
I hate you because you look different.
I hate you because I don't understand you.
I hate you because people I know hate you.
I hate you because I think you hate me.
Because I need someone to blame.
Because you talk different.
Because you act different.
Because you're just different. Man, I hate that things are so bad that we have to do a commercial about it.
Me too.
And then at the end, fight anti-Semitism, which is not what I thought the commercial was going to be about.
Yeah, and I think that there was a Super Bowl maybe 2 years ago or whenever it was when Snoop Dogg was part of the halftime show, and I was very fond in my remarks about him, and I was like, oh, Snoop Dogg, he's like America's high dad. And, you know, and like, that's so cool that we have a high dad that we love.
We still got Willie Nelson.
Yeah, right.
True.
But like after him performing the inauguration, seeing him do this ad with Tom Brady, like, no, I'm sorry, Snoop, it's over between us.
I want to get back to the thing about this ad. No, we can't all get along, right? Like that seems to be where we are right now. We just have to defeat these people. And it seems kind of funny to me that like when you share one of the top shared memes about how we defeat the other side right now is Indiana Jones punching a Nazi on top of a tank.
Yeah.
Like that's how we do it, Harrison
with footage
Ford.
from World War II of us defeating the Nazis.
Yeah, you didn't get along with those Nazis. You didn't wave at
Guys,
the Nazis,
can we just
Harrison.
like share the arc? You get it like every other weekend. I get it. You know, just like I won't open it. You guys can do whatever you want.
There was also like Harrison Ford was like, man, I bet we all wish life came with an instruction manual. Then my life would have been a success. Bummer. And he's like in this massive farmhouse.
With his 2 Jeeps parked outside,
Yeah.
too. By the way, the Jeep that he is driving, it's a 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4-door Rubicon X4XE, starting MSRP of $72,000. So freedom isn't free.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people are not driving through glaciers in the desert or whatever.
The Rubicon.
Right, through the Rubicon. We've passed the Rubicon in many ways. But most people are not driving that way, even if they are Harrison Ford.
This is a classic SUV marketing move. Like they've done this. If you read High and Mighty, which I had to read for one of Jason's
Great book.
Written by Snoop
not just
Dogg.
Pikes. It was like a very specific marketing tactic used for SUVs, specifically to market to people who are like, you have a boring corporate job, but you're still wild and free. You go camping on the weekends. You go off-roading, and it's like this people never actually do. Keep it in your Rubicon.
It would be crazy.
And that this is part of that proud legacy of lying to people about what they're actually going to use their car for.
Speaking of pride, there is a line in this ad which is just so true. Pride is a terrible driver. And that I thought was a very interesting line to make it through. Pride is a terrible driver. That's followed immediately by freedom is the roar of one man's engine. So,
or the silence of another's.
Or the silence of another's. But it's so the message there is a little bit unclear to me. Like, pride is a terrible driver, which is actually true. But then freedom is the roar of one man's engine or the silence of another. It's like they're just trying to give you everything all at once. I
really do think they are giving people permission to buy an electric car and still be a tough guy. Which, I mean, we saw in the last election, like there were a lot of ads and a lot of like campaign promises to be like, we have to give Republicans permission to vote for a Democrat. And that didn't work. So I don't know. What I suspect is happening, unless something has changed since I last looked it up, Jeep is they're owned by American
Stellantis.
Stellantis. Okay, so I think of the big four automakers, I think Jeep is the poorest performing one, and I think they've maybe maxed out their market share with tough guys. And I think like the bigger trucks, your Rams and your what have you, are probably taking that over. And so they're like, we need to sort of expand into Brooklyn soy boy libs, but we can't lose our market base of hunting guys.
Rollie and I are going two ways on a Jeep Rubicon.
Yeah, technically 4 ways if our girlfriends let us.
Yeah, well, we'll pick up some soy milk and almond milk on our way home.
Yeah,
put it in the back.
I suspect they are trying to expand that market, and they just don't want to like change their image with other people. I could be wrong. This is all like pure conjecture, but that's my guess.
I think that's a good theory. I think that's a very good theory. I mean, I think there's an interesting thing in this ad, which is like, it is sort of arguing for a kind of freedom that the left or liberals argue, which is basically like, look, we're not saying you have to do any of this stuff. You don't have to go buy an electric car or ride a bicycle or be trans or do any of this stuff.
I am saying you do have to be trans.
Yes, actually, that's our position.
Yeah.
Sorry,
the left. But like, just let other people do that. And if you see them crossing the street, you know, when you're going in the other direction, like a polite little nod is all we're asking for.
I want the same freedom on foot that you have in your car.
Right. Yes. Can we extend exactly the polite Jeep wave to society?
Yeah,
to
and
a
not
guy
only
not
that.
in a Jeep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but also the thing that I rant about all the time, which is like being able to live in a place where you can choose to walk is a luxury item in this country now. Like, it is not, we do not have the freedom to make these choices because economically most people cannot afford to live in a neighborhood like mine where I can walk out the door and 10 steps away there is a produce stand that sells.
Because you took that $40 million Mercedes.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that enables me to use my legs to walk around. I mean, like, it's you know, it's become so dire. And yeah, I would love, that's what I always say to people, you know, if I lived in Europe, I would have hundreds of cities that I could choose from to live in where I could have that lifestyle. Here, there's one. And it's the most expensive one. Like, it's just, and
Chugwater,
the
Wyoming.
tiny neighborhoods, but the tiny neighborhoods in other cities where you can find that are the most expensive neighborhoods in those cities. It's just walkability is a luxury good. Having the freedom to make that choice to neither have a plug-in nor to have a gas-powered vehicle, I guess that choice is just. That's just incomprehensible. It's outside of the norms too far.
I totally agree. And there was also, just to dovetail that, there was that Donald Glover, This Is America GLP inhibitor.
God, what a weird ad.
What a weird ad.
I couldn't tell until the very end whether it was, like, I thought it was a, like, don't use semaglutide ad until it got to the point where it was Hims, and it was like, all the other semaglutides are trying to take advantage of you, but not us.
Yeah, the way it was, like, kind of preface was, the whole system is rigged against you. And I was like, yes, we're in an obesogenic environment where, like, walking is basically impossible, so nobody does it, so nobody's moving around. And, like, I know it's not the only factor, but it's like, it seems like a pretty important factor. Then they're like, the system is being bad to you. Here's our drugs. They're the same drugs, but they're a little cheaper, and it's Hims and Hers and Donald Glover's song.
We're saving you money by not getting FDA approval.
Yeah,
Donald Glover is urging you to use a compounding pharmacy.
Yeah, that ad gave me total whiplash because I was like, holy shit, like, did Bernie Sanders buy an ad on the Super Bowl? And then suddenly, nope, just another pharmaceutical company.
Right, because also there were all these rumors that there were going to be these ads that
from Elon
Musk about USAID.
Right, speaking of $40 million, it was rumored that he was spending $40 million of his own money to run these ads explaining why USAID was a huge hotbed of fraud, waste, and abuse, as they're saying these days.
One might say a ball of worms.
A ball of worms, which has more worms inside the ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor.
As much as I've hated the car ads over the years and enjoyed ridiculing them, and it's sort of the same feeling I have about that Harrison Ford ad, like, I didn't realize that having those car ads, maybe that was a better world somehow. Like, you know, now it's just it's gone beyond the cars being bad. I actually don't even have a point, but I mean,
there's something like at least the car is a product.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's commercials for like AI and like even like Rocket Mortgage is like a very bummer of a concept. And there weren't any crypto commercials this year because I think we finally realized as a society, like we shouldn't be advertising the concept of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, that's not like maybe how this product should function. But cars, there's a use case for cars.
Yes, exactly.
I struggle to think of almost any use case for AI.
Yeah, it just feels like, I think we've said this a couple of times and maybe we're finally here. We've said this on other episodes that like the Super Bowl ads really speak to me as like end of empire sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not advertising products, as you're saying, Nicole, and just like shit nobody wants and that isn't helpful. Like we now have this service that can tell you if it's going to rain by your restaurant. Like, oh, thanks. I can't just hold my hand outside a window or look at the weather report on the news.
Yeah, the thing we've had for fucking ever.
That's work.
Well, but we're not going to have it.
We're not going to have it.
They're
Once
defunding
NOAA is
NOAA.
I was going to say we won't have the weather
Pretty
report
soon, all
anymore.
we're going to have is AI telling us if it's rain because there's not going to be a weather service anymore.
Damn.
So that's kind of like the big question I want to end on, which is if cars are so central to American life, why are they becoming less and less a part of what is probably, as the Super Bowl is, the only remaining shared experience in American life?
I mean, elections.
But those are rigged. Those are fake.
I mean, I think it's just hegemony now. Cars just exist for the same reason that you don't have to advertise a road. Cars are like, well, you got to use our product. And I think that's why you're really only seeing electric car commercials or plug-in hybrid commercials, because those are the ones that you still got to like get the word out about. But I think like I just don't know that Ford needs to spend its money on a Super Bowl commercial. They're still like putting ads out, but they got that market cornered. I will say, I think the thing that you mentioned at the top about car companies also not knowing which way the wind is blowing with regards to like the Trump administration and
Just
tariffs.
ask AI.
Why didn't they ask ChatGPT what's going to happen with tariffs?
Ask Grok. Yeah.
I do suspect that's part of it. I think as much as I have lofty ideals about how cars are simply a part of our culture now, I think it's also like, well, Ford doesn't want to seem like they're going all in on electric cars if next year they're going to be back to gas, because they're going to have to do a lot of backtracking to be like, we're not just the electric car company. So I think that's
they're
a big
honestly
part of it.
probably reaching, and you guys are, on YouTube, and I love watching Climate Town on YouTube. They're probably just reaching out to a lot of like truck influencers and YouTube channels and getting more bang for their buck that way.
And I just want to say, for $40 million, I will pivot to becoming a truck influencer. I already pivoted once. I was a billiard influencer, and then George Soros gave me $39 million to be a climate influencer, and for 40, I will be a truck influencer.
The bidding is open.
That is it for this episode of The War on Cars. Rollie Williams and Nicole Conlan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm big fans of both of you guys, so it was a real thrill to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
And right back at you. Big fans of The War on Cars. I am a proud new owner of a War on Cars knit cap.
You weren't supposed to say that in front of Nicole.
Sorry.
We didn't have one for her. I'll send you one.
It's just because of my tiny head.
That's true, yeah.
They have to knit me a smaller one.
They gave you one and it just slipped over like an executioner's
Listeners
helmet.
have no way of knowing this, but I had to ask for a different pair of headphones when we started the podcast because my head is a little bit small.
Well, now they know.
Yes.
We will put links in the show notes to everything to do with Rollie and Nicole.
Climate Town, Climate
Town,
Denier's Playbook.
billiards.
Excellent. All worth your time.
Your average pool player.
Yeah, we'll have it all.
Before we close it out, here's a thought experiment. We want your feedback. What would an advertisement on the Super Bowl look like if it was about progressive transportation or really any progressive issue that we want to advance? Like the right is really good at red, white, and blue, patriotism, advancing their side. We need to be just as good. So reply to us on social media. Let us know what you think. What would an ad look like if it was for the stuff that we believe in? And I guess another question is, how would we pay for it? So let us know. We are at The War on Cars on just about every social media platform you can think of. Send us your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm interested to see, because I think it is time to take control of our own destinies as much as we can. The War on Cars is supported in part by the Helen and William Mazer Foundation and by listeners like you.
You can go to patreon.com/thewaroncarspod and sign up today for exclusive access to bonus content, ad-free versions of regular episodes, pre-sale tickets for live shows, stickers, and more.
A big thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon, including our top contributors, Charlie G. of Human Powered Law in Portland, Oregon, Mark Hedlund, and Virginia Baker.
We also want to thank Cleverhood. You can receive 15% off now through the end of February on the best rain gear for cycling and walking. Just go to cleverhood.com/waroncars and enter code DESIGNEDWITHLOVE at checkout. This episode was edited by me. It was recorded by Josh Wilcox at the Brooklyn Podcasting Studio. Our theme music is by Nathaniel Goodyear. Transcripts are by Russell Gregg. I'm Doug Gordon.
I'm Sarah Goodyear. And this is The War on Cars.
You remember your first bicycle. You know, the one with the streamers, training wheels, and banana seat. But it wasn't just a bike. It was your ticket to freedom, hanging out with pals, chasing the ice cream truck down the block. America. You loved that bike. Now you're grown up. You drive a car. You've got monthly payments. Insurance. Kids whining in the back seat. You're stuck in traffic, watching as your tank approaches empty. Didn't you just fill up last week? And that transmission repair is gonna break the bank. It's time to fall in love again. Travel on your own power. Go where you want, when you want. Save money. Be happy. Be free. America is just like riding a bike.